what's going on, everybody? This is Scientific SD, and welcome to the official podcast of Sound Creation Intelligence, where it is all about creating and transitioning sounds from as close to scratch as possible. What's going on? It's been a busy month. Um, I hope all is well with everyone. Hope you're taking care of yourselves and your families and being safe. A lot of crazy things are going on. The election is just around the corner. A lot of people have a lot of mixed feelings about it. Um, all I can say is follow your heart, be educated and knowledgeable about what you're doing and who you're going to vote for or not vote for. And really just stick close to family, man, and really cherish every moment in this life that you have. All right, so let's get to it. I want to ask you a question. Today's podcast, I'm up in the Hilton Garden in Atlanta, Georgia. Uh, I just needed to get away and spend a little bit of time secluded to really kind of uh, have some peace of mind to focus on something that I don't really get to do too often, and that is really like zone in on studying some of the tools that I have. Um, so that's what I'm doing right now, and I have a question that I want to ask you all. I had to ask myself this question at a certain point in my sound design career, and that question is real simple. You're creating these sounds from scratch, and you want them to be industry competitive. But every time you do something to these sounds, it just seems like something is missing. And the question I want to ask you that I had to ask myself is a really simple question. And that is, why are you not equalizing your sound? And so that's today's topics. Why are you not using an EQ on your sound designs? So let's jump into this. I have a couple of EQs that I love to use. Hold on one second. Hold on. All right, let me get I had to get a little something straightened out real quick. Okay, so I um I had to get uh the courage. Kind of lost my train of thought, but the bottom line is during my sound design career, I had to get to a place where I actually had enough courage to implement EQs on my sound effects. For whatever reason, I was intimidated about the process of applying those to my sounds that I was creating from scratch, and boy, did they suffer because of it. Not only did they suffer in the actual end results, a lot of material was gotten rid of. I got rid of a lot of material because I just wanted to simply explore the possibilities of putting a sound, I mean, an EQ on my sound designs. So a sound, a EQ can do a great amount of things to your sounds even before you start applying other effects. They can help you to create, for instance, a balance between the left and the right ear, or some dynamic between the left and the right ear. They can help you clean up troublesome frequency ranges, especially in the mid frequency range where things can get really muddy or nasally. going back towards the high mid frequency range. Um, they can give thin sounds weight. If you use specific types of EQs that you put on the low end frequency range to thicken up or bring out the low end frequencies. Um, they can give your sound effects some timbral presence. If you use an EQ that can boost or bring out the high mid and the high frequency ranges, um, they can give your sounds bite. They can make your sounds uh, have a lo-fi aesthetic. EQs can do numerous amounts of things to your sounds. And the question is, have you taken the time to really, really, really dig into how they do that for the projects and the sounds that you create for yourselves? All right, so let's get into this. I'm going to just pull up some sounds. Just going to pull up a sound. And we'll get into putting some EQ, some different EQs on it just to see what happens. So let me just pull one. I won't even check out what it is. These are a small library of sounds that I created called the reverbial metals. And reverbial metals are just swells. So let's take a listen to this one. All right. Okay, good. There we go. So this is a reverbial metal sound. And sounds pretty decent, right? This is a pre-production sound effect. Pre-mix, there's no mix on it. Well, it was kind of mixed when I created it, but I think I might have used a couple of different layers, a lot of layers, a lot of sound effects, and it sounds pretty good. But I'm going to take these sounds, this core library, and I'm going to take each of these individual sounds through another series of effects processing. So occasionally, before I do that, I'll sit down with a pencil, or pen on a piece of paper, and jot down some notes. Maybe kind of come up with some thoughts about how I want the overall end result to come out. Not just take notes. Some of those notes might be, well, maybe I want the low end frequency to come up a little bit more. Maybe I want to pan these around or give it some type of Doppler effect. I would just take notes on all of those things. But let's listen at how some EQs affect the sounds. I might, decide that I want it to be have a lot of rumble, have a lot of low end energy in it, or maybe a good balance between the low end and the high end. Whatever I'm deciding, Sometimes I'll just take an EQ and play around with the sounds just to get an idea of what uh, I might be able to do with the sound effects when I get ready to actually take them through the post mix. So let's check this out. Now, before I do this, real quickly, I made some changes. I'm using Ableton Live Intro. I'm using Ableton Live 10 Intro, and that is in an attempt to a recent attempt to kind of start moving into having uh, legally friendly softwares. So one of the EQs that I would use in Ableton Live 10 is the EQ8, but it is not in this version of Live. I would have to get Ableton Live 10 Suite, which I am going to get in the near future, but as of right now, I don't have it. And for that purpose, I can't use it, but I highly recommend it. It is an EQ that it's a go-to EQ for me in Ableton Live. Um, but with that being said, I do have Fab Filters EQ, the Q3. And this is a great EQ. And so let's just look at what this EQ can do without even getting technical. At this point, I just want to kind of present the notion to you all who may be hesitant about using the EQ on your sounds, about just what the EQ do. So I'm not going to get into anything technical here. I'm just going to take this EQ or these different EQs, put them on there and do some extreme parameter adjustments so you can hear what they will literally do to a sound that may not sound too industry competitive. Okay. So the first thing I'm doing is with the EQ, I mean with the Fab Filter Pro Q3 is I'm just gonna put a notch in the frequency ranges of 135, maybe a little bit lower, and then I'm gonna put a shelf on here as well, and I'm just gonna boost that shelf up. And I'm gonna boost that notch up. Play around with the Q a little bit and just see what happens. You see immediately I'm able to bring out some of that bottom. Go down. Just experimenting right now. Just looking at what an EQ can do. And Fab Filters EQs, they sound great. They have a very high, they have a very good reputation for their sound quality. They really do work well. I won't get into too much. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of technical stuff, but you can hear what it's doing. Okay, and that's just from EQing, right? Okay, so you can immediately hear what that EQ is doing to the sound. It's changing that sound up dramatically. Um, uh, I try to. I got 14 minutes to go over some EQs and stuff. One of the main things that I love about Fab Filters EQ is that for each band that you create, you can actually decide whether that particular band itself is processing the left channel, the right channel, or stereo, uh, or mid side. You can do that per band. So that creates a situation where you can really change the dynamic of how certain frequencies, not the entire frequency range, but certain frequencies within a range, um, present themselves in the stereo field. So in your headphones, you can really hear if you do something on the left band or the right band or the mid band, you will be able to really hear it in your headphones. So Fab Filter Pro Q, that's something that I just did with that. Let's keep it moving. I don't have a whole lot of time, and I want to go over a few things. I love the sounds of Arteria. Hope I'm saying that right. But they use a lot of preamps, and a lot of these preamps with these main three preamps, the Trident, the pre 1973, and the V76. They have EQ bands on them, and so you can do things with these as well. Hear that? Let's bring up some low end. And these are preamps. Okay, so they can just kind of boost up certain frequency ranges and give it a nice either saturated sound, distortion, subtle saturation. It's just a preamp with a EQ with EQ filtering or EQ bands involved in it, and these sound really good. So check those out from Arteria. Another one, like if you listen to this particular sound, it doesn't have a lot of low end. Okay, so I have a plugin that I love to use to kind of doctor the low end frequency range, and it's called Titanium Bastard by Acoustica. So let's listen to this. It has a preamp, so I'm gonna engage that. So let's listen to what this does. So let's go here and let's listen to what it does. This is with it off. This is with it on. Hope you're using headphones. Okay, you heard that with it off. So it's just much more thinner and more nasally. But then you engage Titanium Bastard and it kind of thickens it up and it just makes it more smooth, makes it more natural sounding. It's got some attenuation. I take that attenuation off, and that just sounds really, really nice to me. But yeah, Titanium Bastard from Acoustica Audio, it really does work to the low end. Speaking of Acoustica, they also have another one that I love to use called the Carl Baxter. This is a Shelving EQ. It's kind of really used on on the mastering side or the finished product on the back end of mixing when you're finishing up on the master bus. Let's listen to what this does. So it has a cut section right here. So I'm going to cut off about 30. And then you can shelve as well. So I'm going to go back and shelf up to 116, and then let's just boost this thing all the way up. You can hear that right there. So you can cut on the low, on the high side as well, and then shelf on the high side as well, and then you can add gain. So I'm just gonna leave it kind of where it is, and I just take that gain, that down. Turn it up. We can just hear that high frequency content more pronounced. This kind of dulls it out. So this kind of help you get towards that lo-fi aesthetic. All right, so let's go up again. All right, let's take the preamp off. Okay, and let's put it back on. And let's play it with it off. Once again, you get that really thin sound, that really thin sound effects. Put it back on. Sounds a lot more fuller. It sounds thicker. It sounds really nice and warm. I like it. You add some shelf on certain at a certain place, so you can get even more out of it. Cut here. Let's listen to that. Okay, so that's a nice sounding shelving EQ. Let's see what else I have that I like to play with. Hornet is a great EQ as well. I've experimented with it and played with it, but it takes a little bit more time to get used to. One of the things that I love about this EQ is that it has a hiss level for some saturation and noise. Kind of an analog type of feel. Let's listen to how this sounds. So I'll give this some input. What I don't like is it takes a minute to get used to how to use these knobs here. They can get a little bit irritating. Okay. But what you want to do with this, but this thing sounds really great. But the way that you want to do this is in order to get, I believe this is the gain. Yeah, so the white parameter knobs are the gain, and then these grayed out rotary knobs with the little white spot with the little white dash. This is the frequency selection, and then the way that you get this to move is actually not clicking on the actual knob, but to click on the frequency range around it, and then it'll move. Okay. So let's go here to this low end. It's really good at it's really good at bringing out that whatever specific frequency ranges that you trying to target is really good at bringing them out if you just look at them. Yeah, and that's your readout button will help you decide like that. I really like this EQ. I just haven't really dug in deep on using it, but it's a great EQ. I really like it. Clean up any muddiness right off in here, or add if you want. Okay, so this is a really good EQ. You can put a low pass frequency filter on it where it won't even um, affect anything outside of that frequency range. Same on the high pass, you can do that for the high and the low. This is really good EQ. It sounds really good, and it's by Hornet. Check them out. Okay, Coffee Pun is another EQ by Acoustica. I really like Acoustica's stuff. I don't have everything, of course. I don't have anywhere near as much stuff as they put out, but I'm actually working to build up my library with Acoustica. I think that their EQs and channel strips and things are really close to me, just really close to UAD. But I'm sure people will argue me down about that. But I really like this sound. Let's check out Coffee Pun. Once again, I have a preamp. And just engage in that preamp you'll hear. Check this out. Without doing anything. All right, so this preamp is just gonna warm and thicken this whole sound up immediately. Listen. You see that? Just putting the preamp on, just putting this EQ on and putting the preamp on without doing anything else is just gonna give you a thicker sound. All right, so let's put in some trim here, and then let's do. You got a cut in the low frequency range, so I don't want to do any cut, and then you got a boost like a shelf. You got a shelving boost. So we're gonna go right up here to, let's go to 70 and just boost. Oh, that sounds really good, really nice and thick. And I can bring up some of this high. Now this sounds really good, and what I like about Coffee Pun is on the high end side, you have this parameter here that lets you cue it. But it's kind of morph. It lets you morph the cue between a notch and a shelf, and I like that. And I've not seen anything else like this before, but I really like it. Shelf notch. This Coffee Pun sounds really good. I love it. And if I wanted to put some low frequency cut, this is what it would sound like. This thing sounds really good. I just revisited this plugin a day ago at the hotel, just playing around with the mix that I've already completed for a client and sold. But I just wanted to go back to that mix and take out some of the sound effects that I use and replace them with others just to see what the result would be on the same exact mix. But I got stuck for hours on end playing around with Coffee the Pun within that mix. This I love this EQ here. I really do. All right. And once again, that is by Acoustica. Let me see. Do I have any other EQs? And I mean, I don't have a lot of EQs. I have a lot of channel strips. But I ain't gonna say a lot of channel strips. I don't have a whole lot of anything, um, because I'm not one of those people that just like to collect plugins. As a matter of fact, I just deleted tons of plugins because I'm never gonna use them. They're not useful for what I do. So uh, let's get rid of them. But this is Acoustica Big Seal, but this is a channel strip, okay? So this wouldn't really qualify for what I'm doing. I'm talking about EQing right now. And I know I have other EQs. Uh, I'll put Focusrite on here. I haven't really. I have played with this EQ. I'll let this be the final EQ. I've played with this EQ, and I'm just going to be real. I've heard a lot of different opinions about Focusrite uh, plugins. Uh, I actually love their plugins, and this EQ sounds really good to me. So let's make a couple of parameter adjustments to this. I like this EQ. I think they should recreate this EQ with a more user-friendly interface and the ability to make it bigger or something like that. But I like this EQ something serious. This EQ sounds good as hell. And like I said, I haven't played around with it a whole lot, but I played around with it quite a bit just to, on the fly, just to see what it could do. I like it. Let's look at this. Listen to it. So this is the low filter cut. I'm just gonna cut around 30. But then here you got the low shelf gain. So it's the low shelf, then the frequency selection, which is here. That's why the frequency is up here. It's a little bit confusion if you don't really look at it. And then the gain is down here. So I selected my frequency. That's a bit much. Go about right here. I put up some frequency shelving gain quite a lot. Let's just listen to this. So that's me boosting that low frequency a lot. All right. Now we can look at the low mid frequency content. It's going from ranges of 40 to 1.2K. With something like this, I like to just kind of get right here between the 3 to 600 frequency range and come down. This is going to remove a lot of mud, especially if you go back over towards I would kind of say 4 to 600. You're going to remove a lot of mud. You got a Q for how wide you want it, so I can go really wide, quite wide. Then I can move back up to about 3, kind of towards 3 a little bit more. And I can just scoop out a little bit of that or a lot of it, however I feel. This is a muddy sound, so I can scoop out quite a bit if I want to. Scoop some of that out. Then we're moving into the high mid frequency range with a notch. And this sound has pretty much got a lot of timbre in it. So I don't need to really add a whole lot in it. I'll boost the little shelf a little bit. I don't need any high frequency content, filtering or cut. But right here in the high mid frequency range, I might kind of go here a little bit and just kind of slightly. It's on 5K. I might want to go a little bit towards 4 and 3 and just kind of slightly boost it. Let's listen. This thing sounds good. Might decide to give it a little bit more shelf. Just listen to that. This thing sounds really good. So this is Focusrite Midnight EQ. It sounds really good to me. And that is all the time I have. But before I leave, I see Mag Audio here. This is a great EQ. Okay. This EQ would change your life if you use it. This EQ here would change your life. I'm not going to go into it right now. I'll save that for another one. Let's see. Do we have anything else? Overloud. I just got this overloud EQ. It's an emulation of a API. and I haven't authorized it yet, so I need to do that. I didn't know I didn't do that. I thought I did. But it's an emulation of an API that I need to authorize immediately. I have plugin alliance. I love this EQ as well, the TE100. This is a beast of a EQ, but it's quite difficult to use. It's not the most user-friendly EQ, but I absolutely love that EQ. And I believe that's close to it. Yeah, that is close to it. So the bottom line is it doesn't matter what EQ you have in your arsenal, and you can also go and up your arsenals with EQs, different types of EQs, and play around with them, practice with them, and learn them. But the moral of the sound design story and the art of transitioning sound with this particular Audible podcast is don't be afraid to apply heavy EQ to your sound designs, especially if you're creating your own custom sound design libraries and packs that you're going to shop around. If you're creating libraries of raw files, then you don't want to do that. Of course, you know you don't want to do any processing. But if you're creating custom sound effects libraries and sound design libraries, and you're trying to get that competitive sound uh, beyond recording, once you've captured a good recording and you've done some good audio editing, um, before you start adding a ton of sound effects processes to try to bring up that sound quality and make that sound industry competitive, experiment with your EQs. They will work wonders for your sound designs. All right, guys, that is it for this podcast. Thank you all for checking me out. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you visit soundcreationintelligence.com. Uh, and until next time, let's get technically creative. All right, this is Scientific SD. Peace.